In the last part of this series, part 10, we started to get into understanding Abraham, the father of our faith. He is the main character that starts the journey to our blessings. I started in the beginning of the story to make sure that Abraham is really understood. Please understand this and understand this good. There is no understanding the Bible without understanding Abraham. You cannot understand the new covenant and understand the promises that we are living our lives for right now if you do not understand Abraham. So he must be discussed. We went through his beginning, but that was just breaking the ice. You must understand the covenant established between him and Yahuwah if you're ever going to understand this faith that you claim. This is not a religion. This is about how you live your life. This is history. It is the history of how the creator of this world has dealt with the problem caused in the garden with the serpent and how the head of the serpent will be crushed. We are in a climatic period in history. And if you don't understand the covenant that starts with Abraham, you will never understand this Bible. So we are going to really walk this through and break it all down so that the Abrahamic covenant is truly understood. When this is done, you have a solid foundation of how this faith was established. Let's begin. Okay, to really get into this, we're going to really deal with the book of Genesis. But in order to get there, we're going to start back from where we ended part 10 in. So we're going to go back to Jasher chapter 12, after Abraham in the fire. And at the expiration of 2 years from Abram's going out of the fire, that is in the 52nd year of his life, behold, King Nimrod sat in Babel upon the throne. And the king fell asleep and dreamed that he was standing with his troops and host in a valley opposite the king's furnace. And he lifted up his eyes and saw a man in the likeness of Abram coming forth from the furnace, and that he came and stood before the king with his drawn sword, and then sprang to the king with his sword. And when the king fled from the man, for he was afraid, and while he was running, the man threw an egg upon the king's head, and the egg became a great river. And the king dreamed that all his troops sank in that river and died. And the king took flight with 3 men who were before him, and he escaped. And the king looked at these men, and they were clothed in princely dresses as the garments of kings, and had the appearance and majesty of kings. And while they were running, the river again turned to an egg before the king. And there came forth from the egg a young bird, which came before the king, and flew at his head, and plucked out the king's eye. And the king was grieved at the sight. And he awoke out of his sleep, and his ruach was agitated, and he felt a great terror. And in the morning, the king rose from his couch in fear, and he ordered all wise men and magicians to come before him. And the king related his dream to them. And a wise servant of the king, whose name was Anaku, answered the king, saying, This is nothing else but the evil of Abram and his seed, which will spring up against my Adonai and king in the latter days. And behold, the day will come when Abram and his seed and the children of his household will war with my king, and they will smite all the king's host and his troops. And as to what you have said concerning 3 men which you did see, like unto yourself, and which did escape, this means that only you will escape with 3 kings from the kings of the earth who will be with you in battle. And that which you saw of the river which turned to an egg as at first, and the young bird plucking out your eye, this means nothing else but the seed of Abram which will slay the king in latter days. This is my king's dream, and this is its interpretation, and the dream is true, and the interpretation which your servant has given you is right. Now therefore, my king, surely you know that it is now 52 years since your sages saw this at the birth of Abram. And if my king will suffer Abram to live in the earth, it will be to the injury of my Adonai and king. For all the days that Abram lives, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. For this was known formerly at his birth. And why will not my king slay him, that his evil may be kept from you in latter days? And Nimrod hearkened to the voice of Anaku, and he sent some of his servants in secret to go and seize Abram and bring him before the king to suffer death. And Eliezer, Abraham's servant, whom the king had given him, was at that time in the presence of the king. And he heard what Anaku had advised the king, and what the king had said to cause Abram's death. And Eliezer said to Abram, Hasten, rise up, and save your soul, that you may not die through the hands of the king. For thus did he see in a dream concerning you. And thus did Anaku interpret it, and thus also did Anaku advise the king concerning you. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Eliezer, and Abram hastened and ran for safety to the house of Noah and his son Shem. And he concealed himself there and found a place of safety. And the king's servants came to Abram's house to seek him, but they could not find him. And they searched throughout the country, and he was not to be found. And they went and searched in every direction, and he was not to be met with. But the king's anger against Abram was stilled, as they did not find him. And the king drove from his mind this matter concerning Abram. And Abram was concealed in Noah's house for 1 month until the king had forgotten this matter. But Abram was still afraid of the king. And Terach came to see Abram his son secretly in the house of Noah. And Terach was very great in the eyes of the king. And Abram said to his father, "Do you not know that the king thinks to slay me and to annihilate my name from the earth by the advice of his wicked counselors? Now whom you have here, and what have you in this land? Arise, let us go together to the land of Canaan, that we may be delivered from his hand, lest you perish also through him in the latter days. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that it is not through love that Nimrod gives you all this honor, but it is only for his benefit that he bestows all this good upon you? And if he does unto you greater good than this, surely these are only vanities of the world. For wealth and riches cannot avail in the day of wrath and anger. Now therefore, hearken to my voice, and let us arise to go to the land of Canaan, out of the reach of injury from Nimrod, and serve Yahuwah who created you in the earth, and it will be well with you. And cast away all the vain things which you pursue." And Abram ceased to speak, when Noah and his son Shem answered Terach, saying, "True is the word which Abram has said unto you." And Terach hearkened to the voice of his son Abram, and Terach did all that Abram said, for this was from Yahuwah, that the king should not cause Abram's death. Jasher chapter 12, verses 45 through 70. So we don't really need to focus on what the dream was that Nimrod had. The purpose was obviously to get Abram to start moving, because he was in a land that was not his, and Yahuwah was about to get him to start going to what he has promised for him. So the conflict with Nimrod stirred him up that he needed to get going. So we go to Jasher chapter 13. And Terach took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, the woman of his son Abram, and all the souls of his household, and went with them from Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. And when they came as far as the land of Haran, they remained there, for it was exceedingly good land for pasture, and of sufficient extent for those who accompanied them. And the people of the land of Haran saw that Abram was good and upright with Elohim and men, and that Yahuwah Elohayu was with him. And some of the people of the land of Haran came and joined Abram, and he taught them the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways. And these men remained with Abram in his house, and they adhered to him. Jasher chapter 13, verses 1 through 3. And this is the period in time where we're now able to go back to the book of Genesis and take it from where the story of Abraham really starts in Genesis. We first go back to Genesis chapter 11. It'll just correlate you with where we are right now from Jasher. And Terach took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife. And they went out with them from of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. And they came to Haran and dwelt there. So the days of Terach were 205 years, and Terach died in Haran. Genesis chapter 11, verses 31 through 32. And so Terach dies, and now it's Abram who is fully in charge. And so we will go to Genesis chapter 12. Now, according to Jasher chapter 13, verse 4, Abram remained in the land of Haran 3 more years. And at the expiration of 3 years, Yahuwah appeared to him. We'll read it as it is spoken in Genesis chapter 12. Now Yahuwah had said to Abram, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram departed as Yahuwah had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran. And they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were then in the land. Then Yahweh appeared to Abram and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." And there he built an altar to Yahweh, who had appeared to him. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel. And he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to Yahweh and called on the name of Yahweh. So Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 9. And so this is the beginning to the covenant. Yahweh has established himself with Abraham and promised to make Abraham great. Now, we will get deeper into this soon because Yahweh does come back and confirm this again. But this is the beginning. Yahweh chose Abraham and gave him specific promises. And so if you're going to understand anything about what's written in the Bible, you must first start with this first, because if you don't understand this relationship and this covenant that Yahweh established with Abraham, you will not understand the Bible. You see, the problem that most people have is what stems from the religion of Christianity. It's the culture. They start in the New Testament and jump to the words of Messiah, and then they will sometimes come back to Genesis and they will just fit some of these biblical characters in, like they'll just fit Abraham in to their understanding. But it should never be done like this. This right here is the beginning and foundation. And if you understand this foundation, then it helps understand our Father and his will for us. It keeps your priorities in order. It takes religion out and lets you stay grounded in truth. Because in Christianity, everyone is so concerned with going to heaven. This is what everyone's focused on. I mean, in these last days, everyone believes that they're going to be raptured and taken to heaven. But please pay attention. None of what is promised to Abraham has anything to do with heaven. It's all about what Yahweh is doing for his people on the earth. And as we discussed from part 3, when understanding the first prophecy of the scriptures in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, this covenant that Yahweh has made with Abram is the beginning of how he plans to bring about the seed of the woman who will bruise the head of the serpent. And it's through these promises that Yahweh has just made. Now, as I said, we will discuss this more in depth towards the end of the video when Yahweh reconfirms what he promised Abraham. But the most important part that you understand right now is that this is the moment. This is the beginning of the foundation. So if you don't understand Genesis chapter 12, you can be deceived in religion, and then you will add falsehoods to this faith that are not actually biblically true or accurate. So let's continue on. So after Yahweh establishes himself with Abraham and tells Abraham to go to the land promised to him, Abraham now begins his journey towards the land of Canaan. Now, to get to this land, they went through Egypt. But for time's sake, we will skip past this, and I want to explain how Abram and Lot separated, because you see right now they are traveling together. But at some point, as you read Genesis, you'll hear that Lot and Abraham split up. And so I want to help fill in the gaps. So let me just fill you in now, and this is found back in Jasher chapter 15. It says, "And Abram arose, and he and all belonging to him went away from Mizraim. And Pharaoh ordered some of his men to accompany him and all that went with him. And Abram returned to the land of Canaan, to the place where he had made the altar, where he at first had pitched his tent. And Lot, the son of Haran, Abram's brother, had a heavy stock of cattle, flocks and herds and tents, for Yahweh was bountiful to them on account of Abram. And when Abram was dwelling in the land, the herdsmen of Lot quarreled with the herdsmen of Abram, for their property was too great for them to remain together in the land. And the land could not bear them on account of their cattle. And when Abram's herdsmen went to feed their flock, they would not go into the fields of the people of the land. But the cattle of Lot's herdsmen did otherwise, for they were suffered to feed in the fields of the people of the land. And the people of the land saw this occurrence daily, and they came to Abram and quarreled with him on account of Lot's herdsmen. And Abram said to Lot, "What is this that you're doing to me, to make me despicable to the inhabitants of the land, that you order your herdsmen to feed your cattle in the fields of other people? Do you not know that I am a stranger in this land amongst the children of Canaan? And why will you do this unto me?" And Abram quarreled daily with Lot on account of this. But Lot would not listen to Abram. And he continued to do the same, and the inhabitants of the land came and told Abram. And Abram said unto Lot, "How long will you be unto me a stumbling block with the inhabitants of the land? Now, I beseech you, let there be no more quarreling between us, for we are kinsmen. But I pray you separate from me, Go and choose a place where you may dwell with your cattle and all belonging to you. But keep yourself at a distance from me, you and your household. And be not afraid in going from me. For if anyone do an injury to you, let me know, and I will avenge your cause from him. Only remove from me." And when Abram had spoken all these words to Lot, then Lot arose and lifted up his eyes toward the plain of the Jordan. And he saw that the whole of this place was well watered, and good for man as well as affording pasture for the cattle. And Lot went from Abram to that place, and he there pitched his tent, and he dwelt in Sodom, and they were separated from each other. And Abram dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Chevron, and he pitched his tent there. And Abram remained in that place many years. That's Jasher chapter 15, verses 33 through 47. And that's how it happened. Abraham, he's a straight shooter. You can appreciate that. Now we can continue from Genesis chapter 13. And Yahweh said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, "Lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see I give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you." Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to Yahweh. Genesis chapter 13, verses 14 through 18. Again, he's promising him great descendants, and he's promising him land. Now, Abram made a promise to Lot that if he ever got in any trouble, then Abram will come and avenge him. And Abram, he didn't make good on his word. In Genesis chapter 14, it tells how the king of Elam went to war with the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the king of Elam won and took them captive. So Genesis chapter 14 explains, "Then they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Then one who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and they were allies with Abram. Now when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He divided his forces against them by night, and he and his servants attacked them and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. So he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Sheva, that is the king's valley, after his return from the defeat of Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him." That's Genesis chapter 14, verses 11 through 17. You see, Abraham, he was establishing a real name for himself in this world. There were no games played with our forefather Abraham. Let's keep going though. It's at this time where Melchizedek, king of Salem, meets Abram. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of the Most High El. And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram of the Most High El, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High El, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." And he gave him a tithe of all. Now the king of Sodom said, "Give me the persons and take the goods for yourself." But Abram said to the king of Sodom, "I have raised my hand to Yahweh, the Most High El, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will take nothing from a thread to a sandal strap, and that I will not take anything that is yours, lest you say, I have made Abram rich, except only what the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their portion." Genesis chapter 14, verses 18 through 24. And this is an important part right here. It's in this moment that Abraham tithes to Melchizedek. Now, this moment can pass by you very simply when reading it, but it's extremely important. You are seeing a priest of Yahweh, the Most High. And even though Abraham is a great man in this land, a man in covenant with Yahweh, Abraham gives a tithe to Melchizedek. But the king of Sodom, Abraham basically ignored him. And when the king of Sodom offered him to keep all the goods that they earned from the battle, Abraham basically said, "Nah, I don't want it ever to be said that you made me rich." He's covered by Yahweh. But this moment with Melchizedek is important. So please note it. It won't come around again until we get to Yahusha. But understand, Yahuwah was establishing how he was going to bruise the head of the serpent, and it was methodical. Praise Yah. If you understand Melchizedek, you will understand this new covenant. It is extremely important that he did this right there. But let's continue on in understanding. Now, understand that Abram, at this point, he's still childless. He heard from Yahuwah that Yahuwah is going to bless him and give him many descendants, but his wife has not given him a child yet. So he has no one to pass on all these possessions, and he's quite rich and strong in this world. So Yahuwah comes to Abram to assure him that he's got him. Genesis chapter 15 says, after these things, the word of Yahuwah came to Abram in a vision, saying, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward. But Abram said, Yahuwah Elohim, what will you give me, seeing I go childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus? Then Abram said, look, you have given me no offspring. Indeed, one born in my house is my heir. And behold, the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, this one shall not be your heir, but one who will come from your own body shall be your heir. Then he brought him outside and said, look now toward heaven, and count the stars if you're able to number them. And he said to him, so shall your descendants be. And he believed in Yahuwah, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. Then he said to him, I am Yahuwah, who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans, to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Yahuwah Elohim, how shall I know that I will inherit it? So he said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then he brought all these to him and cut them in two, down the middle, and placed each piece opposite the other, but he did not cut the birds in two. And when the vultures came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. Now when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to pass, when the sun went down and it was dark, that behold, there appeared a smoking oven and burning torch that passed between those pieces. On the same day Yahuwah made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kezanites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Genesis chapter 15, verses 1 through 21. And so Yahuwah is establishing this covenant with Abraham. And please note that it's all about a land that is promised to him. If you remember from part 8, when I explained Canaan not wanting to go into this land, and he took Shem's land, Yahuwah is now telling Abraham to go back and establish himself in this land that he gave to them. If you read all the tribes in verse 21, this is directly dealing with Canaan's children. Now let's just touch base on this dream that Abram had, because it was horrifying to him, and it's important. Yahuwah showed what would happen to his seed. They would be a stranger in a land that was not theirs, and they would serve them and afflict them for 400 years. It's important to note that he says afflict them for 400 years, not live in the land for 400 years. I will revisit this when we get to the first Exodus, because there is a common misperception. The time in Egypt was not the fulfillment of this dream of Abraham, because while they were in Egypt for over 400 years, that whole time was not an affliction. They were afflicted in Egypt for about 230 years, I believe. So if you understand what's being told to Abraham here, you can understand more about the condition that we are in today, because Israel has been afflicted for 400 years. I want you to understand something. As you start to understand Yahuwah, you're going to see from the beginning, he knew of all that was going to happen, even to this day. And for me, that gives me great comfort, because I know that he remembers us and he still has a plan for us. We are not forgotten. So our job is to do our part and be faithful to him. Now, as we continue, we're going to see Sarai's lack of faith. Maybe lack of faith is harsh, because she was at an older age and she probably thought that she was no longer able to have a child. And so she wanted to make sure that Abraham was able to have a seed. Genesis chapter 16 says, Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, See now, Yahweh has restrained me from bearing children. Please, go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her. And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. Then Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. Then Sarai said to Abram, My wrong be upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. Yahweh, judge between you and me. So Abram said to Sarai, Indeed, your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please. And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from her presence. Now the angel of Yahweh found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from, and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. The angel of Yahweh said to her, Return to your mistress, and submit yourself under her hand. They shall not be counted for multitude. And the angel of Yahweh said to her, Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. He shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Then she called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her, You are the El who sees. For she said, I have also here seen him who sees me. Therefore the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. Observe, it is between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 16. And so, Abram had his firstborn son. But understand, the covenant is not for Ishmael. We're going to tie all this up by going to Genesis chapter 17. When Abram was 99 years old, Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be blameless. And I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham. For I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and your descendants after you. Also, I give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim. And Elohim said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and that shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. Every male child in your generation, he who is born in your house or brought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendant. He who is born in your house and he who is brought with your money must be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut from his people. He has broken my covenant. Then Elohim said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to Elohim, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Then Elohim said, No, Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at the set time next year. Then he finished talking with him, and Elohim went up from Abraham. So Abraham took Ishmael his son, all who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abram's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very same day, as Elohim had said. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very same day, Abraham was circumcised, and his son Ishmael, and all the men of his house, born in the house, or brought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. Genesis chapter 17, verses 1 through 27. You're talking about the real right there. That's 99 with no anesthesia. That's real. But anyway, this is the establishment of the biblical covenant with Abraham that we are all inheritors of right now. I want you to seriously make note of this. Read Genesis chapter 12 again and read Genesis chapter 17. Ask yourself, please, is there anywhere that the promise to Abraham is about going to heaven? Is this anywhere as a basis of the foundation of the promises established between Yahuwah and Abraham? Absolutely not. You see, as believers in Yahusha, Christians, they always quote Paul in Galatians 3. And if you are Messiahs, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Galatians chapter 3, verse 29. So they all know that we're heirs to Abraham's promise, but Christians, their whole focus is going to heaven when this was not the promise made to Abraham and his seed. I want you to focus in on this because this is a major problem in religion, which is why you will repeatedly hear me speak against Christianity. I have been thorough reading the whole chapters here so that there can be no confusion. If you are accepting Messiah and becoming heirs of the promise, do you not think it's important that you know what those promises are? The promise was made to Abraham, and if you don't understand this, you won't understand the Bible. All these Christians are saying that they believe that God is going to save them and take them to heaven to escape his wrath. Well, we are at the foundation of the promise when Yahweh established his covenant. Understand right here, this is why we know Gentiles can be received, because it's in this promise to Abraham that he said that through his seed, he will bless all the families of the earth. I mean, so many things are confirmed right through this, but what is not confirmed is a promise to go to heaven. You're not seeing a promise of him promising to take people from the earth. Now understand, I'm not talking about death and what happens when we die. That's not the point I'm talking about. I'm talking about life. The main thought in mainstream Christianity right now is not about people thinking about death. They're thinking about going to heaven. They believe that while they are alive, they're going to be beamed up to heaven. And they believe this is what's promised to them. And so it's important that you actually understand the actual covenant. So let me deal with it. This is the basis of understanding. This was the promise of Abraham. There were 4 promises. There was the promise of 1, an offspring, 2, of land, 3, a blessing for Abraham himself, and 4, the blessing of the nations through Abraham. Make sure you understand that. So the land that Abraham was in is the promised land that was promised to Abraham's descendants. Abraham was given a seed that these blessings and promises were passed down through. The promises of Abraham was passed all the way down to what we know as the children of Yasharel, or better known today as Israel. And understand, we will get to all that, but it's important that you understand how this all worked. Yahweh promised land, and the promises were passed down through the sons Yahweh chose. Now, in reviewing the covenant, we know that Yahweh promised that Abraham will be blessed, but also he promised that through Abraham's seed, the families of the earth shall be blessed. Yahweh was going to bless the other nations through the seed of Abraham. And again, this goes right back to the fulfillment of the prophecy in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, in dealing with the problem of sin because of Adam. And this right here is all the beginning. And I can't stress it enough how important this all is. This is the foundation of the covenant, and this is the difference between the true faith of the way and Christianity. Because while Christians like to claim that they are inheritors of the promises of Abraham, they have completely made their own expectation and made their own promise that has nothing to do with what Yahweh has actually said. So while we are following the way, we are actually attached to the true promises. which is what we're waiting for, which is why those living in the truth aren't trying to leave this earth. This is why it's important to wake up to the truth. And if you can't understand the difference between Christianity and the way, right now there's not much more I can show you. The simplest way of explaining is one is trying to stay on earth and obtain the promises and live in the land promised to Abraham, and the other is trying to go up to heaven when they weren't invited. You have to understand the promise. So read it on your own, Genesis chapter 12 and Genesis chapter 17. And the thing is, as we continue, Yahweh is going to keep confirming this covenant to Isaac and then Jacob, to the children of Israel. All of them are going to receive the same covenant. Now let me cover this. To confirm this covenant and establish it, Yahweh had Abraham circumcise the foreskin of every male. I don't want to skip over the importance of this, so we will discuss it more in part 12. Please understand that I'm not skipping over that. So what we will do is stop here and come back to Abraham and Isaac, because you need to understand how this covenant gets passed down. Understand the beginning of this series, I'm trying to take my time because I don't want to rush and skip over important things that will help you understand this faith. I can't promise that as we continue, I can be as thorough, but right now, this is all foundational. And I want to make sure that for those that truly love our Father and desire to wake up, you have a resource that can help you. Now listen, this is not a substitute for reading on your own. So please make sure that you're reading. But I hope this can help you and your children grow in knowledge of Yahweh, so that this is more than just words on paper, but a true faith that your life is committed to living through. Right here, what you're seeing right now, this is the foundation of the promises. And if you understand this, you will understand these scriptures. And as you have this foundation, this will help you move forward in the word. So we're going to stop here and get back to Abraham and Isaac in part 12. So please, go to part 12 of this playlist and continue to grow in knowledge and truth. Live your life in the truth and stay out of the lies, because the kingdom of Yahweh is truly at hand. Be ready for it and be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Okay, thanks again for watching. If this has blessed you, please make sure to like it and share it. Please share this with any of your family and your friends that they say that they're trying to wake up. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. Yah willing, I will be uploading every Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday. Please don't forget to follow this ministry on Facebook and Instagram to find out when these videos are posted. As always, I would like to give a special thank you to those who have donated and contributed to this ministry. Your contribution and support are a huge blessing to this ministry. Thank you for your obedience to Yahweh's call on your heart. I'm humbled by your support and I'm very thankful for you. Okay, thanks again for watching, everyone. I love you all.